Jacob, welcome to the 20-something podcast.
Well, my name's Jacob Davis. I own and operate the nutrition stores. It basically was ingrained in my brain. You know, I don't have to go get a job. Like, I do have an opportunity to create something. But most of the time, the biggest struggle is me getting over the thoughts in my own head.
Jacob, welcome to the 20-something podcast.
Glad to be here.
I'm excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. I mean, yeah, it's always a great opportunity to, join somebody's podcast when they ask. And I'm a notorious talker and a person who likes to make a fool of myself. So any chance I can to get on camera, I'm down. So
Perfect.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'll have you kind of tell everybody who you are, what you do, like your elevator pitch type of spiel, and then we'll kind of reverse it back to beginning of your 20s and we'll ride that wave.
Sweet. Sounds good. Well, my name's Jacob Davis. I own and operate the nutrition stores here in the upstate. So we have 2 locations in upstate South Carolina. One's in Spartanburg and the other's in Greenville. And so what we do at TNS, I don't like to refer to us as a store because that's not what I'm trying to cultivate there. We're a brand that believes in breaking the stigma of the traditional like supplement store, supplement industry model, which is very much, buy all these products or, here's this. Trust me, bro, or broette, you're going to get results. No, we're very scientific in what we do. So my degree and background is physiology and nutrition science.
Nice.
And so using, not that the degree matters, it's just a sheet of paper, but using my background in that and applying that to what we do, everything has a very specific process. I always tell people, if it doesn't have data, it's not going to be on my shelves. I'm not your Eastern medicine herb that your cousin's brother's sister's grandma swore would cure cancer kind of place. We send people to other stores for that. I have great relationships with a lot of the local stores in town where we can partner. But so that's what I do. Essentially, that's what the nutrition store is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
I appreciate stuff like that. I think that industry is, when I got into fitness, I had no idea.
Yeah, most of us don't.
I remember the first protein powder I ever bought was the Shakeology.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The, I guess, I don't know if they still are, but they were like a multi-level marketing kind of company.
Yes. I was like the little freshman in college.
Right.
Like, I want to lose weight.
At least, you didn't get to the point of having like girls' nights where you sell them the stuff.
No,
okay,
no,
good.
No.
That's almost as bad as a Karen selling like, her, whatever the latest pyramid scheme for, makeup and whatnot is.
Yeah.
No, yeah. The industry's rampant with that. It's very like, we'll conduct a study on an ingredient or the company will pay for the study to be done, elicit X, Y, and Z result in cells in a Petri dish. And therefore it's going to do this, but it doesn't work out that way. So, and we have a unique opportunity with the stores in that I'm a nerd and I love technology, videography, graphic design, all of that.
Yeah.
We use our social media outlets and make content to try to, reach and teach people. Yeah. So it's kind of a blend of a store and a brand.
Yeah.
So
y'all have fun content.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
It's fun to watch.
It's, I always say, if my goal is to either entertain, educate, or offend, because if I've offended somebody, then we're getting eyes and ears. Yeah. But we try to have a good time.
That's awesome.
So
cool. So all right, I guess this can maybe take us back to the 20s, but I want to hear about like how you got into all this and how this is passion now and how you built all of this and all that jazz. So take me back.
Yeah. So we will go all the way back to when I was 13 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 13, just gotten out of 8th grade, and I was a chubbier kid. I was never like morbid or like super overweight. Yeah. But I was chunky, right? And so in my friend group, my nickname was Fat Ass because I just happened to be the one that didn't grow into my body yet at the time. But that, it kind of got to me at a young age. Not that it became like an obsession, but that year on Christmas, my dad got me a pull-up bar, and it was the perfect pull-up. So we like mounted it in the door. Nice. And basically over the course of that year, I didn't go to the gym, but my goal was every time I'd go in and out of my bedroom, try to do pull-ups. And, I went from 1 to being able to do 30, started running, and I just kind of fell in love with the progression I was making. Yeah. So I got my first gym membership at I was 13.
Wow.
And so immediately, like, I fell in love with the idea of bodybuilding, like improving my physique, the way I look. So I quit playing sports. I stopped football. I wasn't really good at it anyway. I was more so there for the social environment of being with my dudes.
Yeah.
But I became that kid. I was the kid in high school who carried the prepped meals, had my gallon of water.
Nice.
You know, the stereotypical bro, meathead at a young age.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've always been more of a how and a why guy, not like the what.
Yeah. And
so I always, more so than like just looking good or building my body, I was always intrigued by like, how did this muscle get built? Or like, why is the food that I'm eating making a result happen?
Yeah.
So throughout high school, I convinced myself I want to become a dietitian. I want to become a registered dietitian. Nice. I had worked with a few coaches at a young age who were PhDs in nutrition, and I loved it. Like the actual scientific backing of how this stuff works. So graduated high school in 2014, went to Winthrop University, and started out studying dietetics, or at the time it was nutrition science was the program. Mm-hmm. And I got about 2 years into that, and I realized, okay, this is straight lining me towards the hospital setting, and I didn't want to work in that environment. Yeah. It wasn't for me. So one of my mentors, he kind of pulled me over to kinesiology, to exercise science. So like I was able to bridge my degree in a way where I was still allowed to take a lot of the nutrition courses, but also, the other physiology and anatomy and all that fun memorization crap. Throughout this entire time in college, I didn't touch supplements. I had a bad taste in my mouth from spending all of my money working at Ingles in high school. Every time I'd get paid, I'd go to GNC, and like they'd sell me whatever pill was new or the powder. Yeah. Wasted a lot of money. Yeah. And also knowing that in dietetics and in nutrition, we don't touch dietary supplements. Like we don't talk about it. Mm-mm. And it's mainly because the FDA doesn't regulate, big air quotes there, which we can get into down the road, supplements. Yeah. And so it wasn't until my junior year, I was working somehow full-time as a trainer at LA Fitness. And I picked up another part-time job while in school. Mm-hmm. I was crazy. And this part-time job was at a small store called Rock Hill Nutrition, just locally owned, like really small. It was probably like 2 of these studios worth, but I picked it up as a cash job. Yeah. And after working there for a while, I'm like, this guy is actually teaching people stuff. Yeah. Like he's not just giving them a powder or a fat burner and saying, all right, do this, follow this meal plan, good luck. Yeah. No, he's like taking the time to explain the data, like why these ingredients are possibly helpful. Uh-huh. He's not lying to them or selling them something they don't need. Right. And I was like, okay, there is some legitimacy to some of these products. Started nerding out, looking on PubMed, reading the literature, just building my knowledge. And I found this podcast my senior year that I just became obsessed with. And you might have heard of it before, but it was the founder of First Form. It's called the MFCEO. Yeah, I listened to that. Yeah. So the original MFCEO project, back before it was, political. Yeah. I listened to that nonstop, and it basically was ingrained in my brain. I don't have to go get a job. Like I do have an opportunity to create something for myself, and what's not the better time than to do it right now? Yeah. I'm 21, 22. Yeah. I've saved up this money from personal training. My parents will let me crash on their couch for a little bit when I'm done. So I had nothing to lose. And so January of my senior year of college, I had filed all of my business paperwork. I secured our lease for the first location by April that year before I even graduated. Wow. And it just became my focus. My whole mission was to build the nutrition store. Mm-hmm. And at my graduation day, I didn't even walk. I was in the store putting up shelves. Seriously? So yeah. Like I'd already kind of moved home at that point, back to Spartanburg. And that's kind of what got me into fitness, I guess, from a young age. And I was just always obsessed with the knowledge behind it. Like I didn't care to be Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
I always wanted to be like the guy behind the scenes, like explaining to the athletes why they need to be doing something different.
Yeah.
As weird as that is, those who don't teach, so to speak.
Right,
but
yeah.
I'll take that title because I do like teaching
right.
and explaining things.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it came to fruition.
Cool.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I could go from then to now, but that's just a bunch of extra crap.
Yeah.
I could ramble on about.
Well, I like that stuff. So you were 22 when you started
Yep.
the business? Mm-hmm. What was that like at that age with
exciting?
No background in that.
Yeah, it was exciting because it gave me an opportunity to, I guess, delve into something I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
And I was always kind of not the teacher's pet, but in college, most of the instructors and professors knew that I was taking it the most seriously compared to my other classmates. Like I was already in environments where I kind of already knew my shit, so to speak. But business, trying to start something that not only feeds me, but eventually feeds teammates and employees of mine.
Yeah.
I had no clue. I was excited though, because what you don't know can't hurt you. Mm-hmm. And I had no clue of the stresses and the amount of time and, the losses that could happen.
Yeah.
So it was very exciting. And I'm very blessed. Like, when I say I started this at 22, it wasn't like all me, right? Like my parents did let me stay with them for a year. Like I got to go back home and live at home. So I had very little living expenses. I was able to just kind of throw everything into keeping the store afloat. Yeah. And so I don't want to discredit that. I would definitely had a lot of things in my favor, in my corner. For sure. But it's just like the blissful optimism of not knowing what's next, but always having something new to learn every day and do. Because I'm not good with monotony. Like you get me in an environment where it's like a manufacturing conveyor belt, I'd probably go insane really quick. Just the same things over and over. I like interacting and doing new shit. Yeah. So, but yeah.
No, I'm 100% the same way. I found First Form around the same time and became a Legionnaire while I was in school. And from literally that day on, I was like, I will never work a 9-to-5 job. Right. I will never do that. I've got no clue what I'm going to do after school, but I'm not doing that. Right. And blessing and a curse, because you get out of school and you're like,
what do I do? I have this paper.
I need money.
Yeah, exactly.
I need money.
Right.
And what are benefits and stuff like that. But I think that mindset is just such a blessing at that age, because then you're thrown into the uncomfortable and you just have to figure it out instead of being so used to the 9-to-5 and the constant paycheck. And then, I mean, I've never done it, but I feel like it would be tougher to go from that to entrepreneur than to just be an entrepreneur and have that mindset. I'm sure.
I mean, let's say you're working a 9-to-5 and you're already established, right? Like you're married or you have a house and bills. Yeah. It's a lot more difficult to take a risk when you have that much. I was explaining that to a friend last week. I said, Jacob from 6 years ago when he started the store to now, I would have said yes to a million risks and not even thought about the repercussions because I wasn't married. I didn't own a house. I had no really overhead expenses. I could take that L. Now it's like, okay, if I do this and it bankrupts me, I can't afford to not bring home any kind of paycheck now. Yeah. So it is a lot more difficult. I could imagine coming from already a place of being established. Luckily, I did it right when I wasn't. Yeah. And so,
that's been a big theme with the podcast and people coming on is at this age, it's okay to take those risks and you should take those risks. And if you do fail, it's going to hurt way less than if you wait in the long term or I should just build up this amount of money or that. Well, by the time you build it up, then it's okay, well now you have a kid and this and this and then you're essentially stuck, and then that's that hamster wheel that people get stuck on. And I remember always hearing people talk about that, and that was my biggest fear growing up. I was I don't want to ever be stuck in something I can't get out of, because that I don't like to be told what to do. Yeah. Which another blessing and a curse.
Well, and the thing is, those of us who don't like being told what to do also struggle telling ourselves what to do. Yeah. So there's a million different things. Oh yeah. Yeah. But no, that paralysis by analysis is real. I always use that statement because even in fitness, I mean, you as a trainer, for example, I'm sure you've met tons of people that have read about 20 different diets or 20 different workout routines on the internet and how one's better than the other, or this, that, and the other. But they rarely do take action on just one and stick with it. They're always bouncing around or, analyzing things that keep them from moving. And I don't have kids yet, and so I might be wrong for saying this, but I do kind of compare starting a business to having a child in a way, because they always say, one, there's never going to be a right time to have kids. Like when it happens, you just have to figure it out and be a parent, right?
Yeah.
And two, it requires so much attention and effort and love and care, especially during the early years.
Yeah.
And it does require, even up until 3.5 years ago, I was at the stores probably over 100 hours a week.
Oh my.
And I loved it though.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like I'm like, oh, I'm a hard ass, work.
Yeah.
It was something that I genuinely love doing, but it does require that much time and effort.
That makes sense. So what were those first few years like?
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, and I say that because I was just optimistic. I had no employees. I didn't have much to pay for outside of keeping the store's lights on. Yeah. So from the get-go, launching a business in my hometown where I grew up, and I was kind of known as the bodybuilder bro kid. When people heard Jacob was coming back home to start a store, they're like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So, the first 2 years, really, 2.5, 3 years, were great. I mean, it was just nothing but upward trajectory.
Nice.
And looking back, a lot of decisions I made weren't the best at the time. But I mean, we went from 0 to 7 figures in less than 2 years of being open. That's just revenue. Yeah. Since then, things have changed a lot. Right. But it wasn't until I decided to open the Greenville location where I started to realize that what I was doing with one, I cannot do duplicated. Right. I can't do the same things at both stores.
Like what?
Well, for one, the customer demographic in Greenville, totally different than Spartanburg people. Really? Very much so. For two, the average income here is a little different. The cost of things like rent is very different. And the strategy I have to take to reach people here is different. Okay. And I mean, I could go into specifics, but a lot of it's opinion based. Right. And I don't want to make it seem like I don't like Greenville people. I do. But I've just noticed that a lot of our Greenville customers have more of a, I guess we'll say, sense of confidence, arrogance, if you will. Okay. So whereas Spartanburg, I guess we've already established ourselves as the authority. Gotcha. People come to us wanting to be told the truth. Right. Greenville, people are more likely to know more than me or know more than the teammates and don't like being given suggestions, right? And we're very blunt. Like that's, if you came to me and said you'd been taking a fat burner and a testosterone booster that did this, this, and this for you, I'd look at you and be like, why are you wasting money on that? But, and so like there's differences in communication in Greenville, and also knowing the amount of time it would take to get that store off the ground. I assumed that it would just blow up like Spartanburg just did. No, we've been taking a loss there 3 years. Wow. Now, I mean, we're going to turn the page this year. Yeah. Like we finally climbed out of it. Yeah. But I just didn't expect it because I had such quick success with one. Yeah. But that's also when I hired, I had 2 full-time managers. I hired a bunch of teammates to help. I just didn't realize how much expenses would come along with growing or trying to push it. Yeah. What was that turning point like for you when you decided to open Greenville and then realizing like, oh, this is not going to be the same, and then the actions that you had to figure out to take? Yeah, so I had to, unfortunately, we had to part ways with, with management in Greenville about 2 years ago. And that was just because I couldn't afford to continue paying a salary to somebody who's full-time at a location that's just not keeping up with that. For two, it also gave me new perspective on the direction that I want our company to grow in. I never want to become a franchise. I never want to become a 20, 30, 40 store operation across the country. Right. That's just not something I want. because I noticed that it became so much more difficult for me to take the value that we give customers from one store and try to replicate that. And it's possible to scale. It is. But these stores are also not profitable enough to hire registered dietitians to run all day, every day. So it shifted my perspective. Originally, I wanted, I think 10 stores was the goal. And, X, Y, and Z manufactured products. Because we own a supplement company too, where so we manufacture products that we sell in the store and also sell to other stores.
Oh, wow.
But so it kind of opened up the doors for me to look at it from a bigger picture and say, okay, I've got a good thing going here in the upstate. Why would I try to sacrifice that by opening 5 or 6 more stores in other locations where I'm not aware of the demographics or the type of people that are there? When I could really scale this vertically by manufacturing more and more and more, eventually opening a facility here in the upstate, and then growing that way through our online channel, through making products that are Californian stores carry, like growing that direction rather than, I guess, deep, not wide,
Yeah.
So adding that onto it, and that opened my eyes. I'm like, I do want Enjoy the nutrition store to be massive one day, but I don't know if I want it to be massive across, physical locations.
Like brick and mortar stores versus like an online supplement type of thing. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, our network, it spans much further. If, let's say I make 10 products and you're a store owner and you carry 7 or 8 of them, right? And your customers come in and see them. They scan the QR code after enjoying whatever product it might be. That they now are kind of in our ecosystem. And so we can grow that direction too.
Yeah.
So that's the vision with it now.
Okay. That's so cool.
And that's where it's been trending.
Yeah.
So if I continue to get my shit together and learn more and more about cash flow management and all the fun business crap, then we'll keep growing that direction.
Okay.
So
when did you start manufacturing your own supplements?
So our first pre-workout we released in January of 2020.
Okay.
So that was, I'm trying to think. Yeah, so it was about a year and a half in.
Okay.
And we had our first pre-workout, Enjoy the Ride, made. It was margarita flavored. So it was like a lemon lime with salt.
Nice.
People loved it. And so then following that, we made 2 more flavors of Enjoy the Ride. Then we made a product called Enjoy the Insanity, which was probably the most popular pre-workout in the supplement industry for about a year.
Wow.
And it sounds good. I'll get to why it's not good in a minute. Stores we had about 30 stores that were selling it for us. But during this time, I was using my company money, like the nutrition store's revenue, to fund manufacturing runs, right? And so by the time I had, let's say, paid to manufacture product, which could have been $20,000, $30,000, I needed that money to repurchase inventory for the stores, like protein, and so I ended up shooting myself in the foot a lot, which is why when it came time to continue making Enjoy the Insanity or make another run of Enjoy the Ride, couldn't afford to. And so we took a break. I think we're on our 4th generation of pre-workout now. Okay. And the goal is to keep it. Like, I don't want there to be a year without having our products in the store. So created a separate business, basically a separate bank account structure now to where I am managing it better. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, the first one was almost, I guess, 5 years ago. And we have since made multiple pre-workouts. We make a creatine monohydrate, just pure. We have vitamin D3 and K2, magnesium glycinate, and then a locally grown and sourced lion's mane mushroom that's from Saluda. Very cool. Really cool stuff. So, but the goal, obviously, we want to make things that are beneficial for health that most people can really actually benefit from, but also have fun with it. So enjoy the ride. It's like a cartoon themed brand. That's fun. So every product we make will be enjoy something. That's cool. So yeah. I love that. So Thanks. Is it just you still doing that, or do you have a partner in the manufacturing, or is everything just you? Yeah. So it's just, I mean, I have so the company itself, the nutrition store, I have a 10% silent partner. Okay. But he's He's more so there to help with financing things if we need it.
Gotcha.
But as far as the manufacturing goes, it's not as complex as a lot of supplement companies like to make it seem.
Okay.
We use what's called contractors. And so all across the country, there's hundreds of contract manufacturing facilities that make dietary supplements. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you've got to vet them to make sure you're getting quality and actually they're testing their ingredients. Yeah. But so essentially we formulate it, send it to our manufacturers, and then we negotiate quotes and flavors and tests and go from there. So... Okay. Yeah, it still is all me. I'm a psycho, but eventually that'll shift. So, the goal is to grow it enough to where my Spartanburg store manager can take over the brand side.
Gotcha.
But we still got some time to make that happen.
Yeah.
So,
alrighty. What's been the most difficult thing to overcome with now having two stores as far as like the business side of things? Like for people that might be really interested in starting a business, but there's so freaking much that goes into it that I don't even know where to start.
Ooh, most difficult thing to overcome. If you're like me, money management, and that's the thing. I do this a lot. Like I know I don't need to, but if we have especially early on, if I have a great sales month, it's almost like I forget that I have to put at least half of that back into rebuying inventory. Yeah. So it's like, understand that retail especially is like this. Mm-hmm. Like you're never going to have like software, you put time investment in and you just have revenue accruing. Mm-hmm. With retail, you're selling and then you're rebuying. And so, the goal should be to trend your cash flow up.
Right.
So learn cash flow, especially if you're considering brick and mortar. That was a big one for me. And I still have to reteach myself.
Yeah.
And then I guess on top of that, for me, a very difficult thing is operations and operational procedures.
Okay.
I'm a structured person for myself, like as far as my daily routine and stuff. But me creating a set of procedures based on what I want done in the company, I suck. Like I'm not a great leader in that regard. Yeah. Where like if I were to hire you, I'm not very good at giving you a step-by-step process of here's how you need to do this or what you need to do. I'm like, hey, watch me learn. If you have questions, butt in.
Learn.
Yeah. But so that's a big one. Like just learning the importance of a operational dossier for a business, like how to turn on the lights, like. You need to make it dummy proof. And I've gotten better thanks to AI. Like I use Loom to help me make a lot of operating procedures. But I think anybody starting a business really needs to put an emphasis on learning about that up front.
Yeah.
And I say that because you might not think about this now because I didn't. When I first opened the store, I'm like, this is going to be my lifelong passion. Like I'm never going to want to leave this. Over time, you might realize that you have other passions or that you want to navigate another business. Mm-hmm. You will never be able to exit your business if you don't have an operational playbook to sell that business with.
I see.
Yeah. And I didn't have that.
That's smart.
So just thinking about that, I'm not saying everybody's going to want to sell. Right. I might not ever, but that was a difficult one for me. Mm-hmm. But other things, I've always kind of... knock on wood, marketing's come pretty easy to me. Like understanding how to make provocative calls to action or getting attention. Yeah. I don't mind embarrassing myself. Marketing, customer service, those things they kind of came secondhand. Yeah. But I don't know. I could probably answer that a million different ways.
Most people can.
But most of the time, the biggest struggle is me getting over the thoughts in my own head. Like. Convincing myself to be patient. Like things don't need to happen now. They're already in motion. Yeah. I'm very impatient.
Yeah. So as far as like learning about business on the front end, I know you said you listened to the MFCEO project a lot, but were there any other things that you listened to or consumed or read or things that maybe would be helpful for people that are looking to learn but don't really know where to start?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've read a ton of books, and I think that if I were to just give them all out right now, it wouldn't provide much context because there's books I've read where it's like this makes no sense. I reread it again in 2 years. And I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Now I'm at the level where this, makes sense. So the first thing I started with, I remember driving to Barnes & Noble, not knowing what the hell I was looking for. I'm like, I just need to learn something about business.
Yeah.
I picked up this thick textbook, and it looked intimidating, but really easy to read. It was called The Young Entrepreneur's Guide to Running and Starting a Business. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
But it took you through A to Z, how to create your LLC, how to get your tax ID information, how to understand, what to charge, how to do this, that, and the other. It's a very, very good overview of a lot of things that go into business.
Yeah.
Another great asset that I think people about a year in should read, maybe 2, depends on how quickly you grow. It's called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Yeah. E-Myth, it's a very popular book. Like, it's a short read. It just talks about basically how to structure your business in a way that can run like a machine.
Yeah.
Like, how do we take Grace out of the 20-something podcast and it still grow without you here? You know? When you get to that point where you need to invest your time in other projects, but the day-to-day is still calling your name and you have to be there, that book is extremely helpful.
Right.
So I love that. But I think that book is best read like a year in. Same thing with Rocket Fuel. Or what's the other one? Clockwork. Clockwork's another great one. They're all similar, though, in their theme. 3 years in, look into Traction by Gino Winkman, Traction. He created this system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, but it's another great structure playbook. So those are my top 3.
Yeah.
But podcasts, I love them. Love Alex Hormozy. I love his wife, Layla. Listen to them all the time. Still love Andy and all of his information. So, but yeah.
I think they're starting the MFCEO project back up pretty soon here.
He's been saying that for 2 years, though, for the record. So I believe him. I mean, I do think it's going to come back. Even though, if people took the time to go to the old episodes and,
go all the way back,
go from 1 to 200 or whatever, it's great info.
Yeah.
So
I like to listen to all the older. I listen to his newer stuff too, but I like to go back and listen to the older stuff. I like to listen to the 75 Hard Verses episodes when he brings people on. I think those are really inspirational.
Have you done 75 Hard?
I have. I'm about to finish the Live Hard program.
That's awesome. Great work.
I haven't done the full program yet. I've done 75 Hard 3 times, but this will be my first time finishing the whole year.
That's freaking awesome, dude.
So I'm excited.
Congrats.
I'm nervous for phase 3 a little bit, but
you got it.
Yeah.
If this is your third time, you're going to push through.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, and you're doing the actual 75 hard, not not 75 soft or 75 mild.
Yes.
They poke fun at that all the time.
Yes.
But.
I have found myself, I need to be careful because I was so defensive of 75 hard the first time I did it because it was so special to me and changed so much for me. And people would be like, oh, I'm doing 75 hard. And I'd be like, oh, what book are you reading? And they're like, well, I'm not reading a book. And I'd be like, well, then you're not doing it. Okay, it's not your problem.
It's
That's
not the program.
Your problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. I get so defensive over it.
Right. Well, and I'm sure it eats Andy up too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because the amount of I don't know, but I've seen screenshots of soccer mom Facebook groups and it's 75 soft, stuff like that.
30 hard.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Good. If you're doing something to better yourself, that's fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the whole, correct me if I'm wrong, but the overarching principle of 75 hard is to realize structure improves your life. And also you have control over your time more than you think, right?
It's so much more mental than people think it is.
Yeah.
That's literally one of the things I recommend to everybody that asks me for advice. I'm like, you should do 75 hard.
Yeah. And I think, the same can be said for business entrepreneurship. It doesn't have to be 75 hard, but I think the more structured you can apply to your life. Yeah. Fitness, very important for a healthy mind.
Yep.
Also for, feeling your best. Nutrition, health, thoughts, it all connects. So, structure is very important.
Yeah. Pretty much every guest I've ever had on here has had some sort of background or current state in some sort of health and fitness. And that's been like a reoccurring trend, like with any successful person. It's like they take care of their body, they take care of their mind, because like you said, it's all connected.
It is. Yeah.
And that was like the biggest thing I saw in every single time I did 75 hard was the way other things in my life started getting better. Like you go into it, the first time I did it was more so like I was a Legionnaire and everybody else was doing it. And I was like, I'm already disciplined. And then I heard Andy say something and I was like, shit, I have to do this.
Right.
And then the second time it was more like, I don't like my body. I don't like the way my body looks. Like I need to like whatever. And then it never turns out being for that reason at the end. But the third time was like, the podcast is starting to go like this. Like my job is starting to go like this. And then everything kind of clicks and you're like, oh, this is why you do this all the time, not just for 75 days. And then you end it, which is the whole point of the program, is to like leverage your life.
Gain that momentum.
Yeah.
You know, get that positive momentum going. Cause you know, when you feel like you have no control or you have no sense of direction, you know, look at the other factors in your life. It's like, well, I'm not controlling my sleep or my eating or my physical activity. A lot of things are out of whack. So
what are some of the non-negotiables you have every day?
Non-negotiables are going to be go to the gym. Sometimes sometimes I go and I might do 1 or 2 sets and just leave. Like I'm not proud of that, but like some days I'm just not there. And some days this phone in my pocket creeps into my head and I start looking at emails and I shouldn't. So a non-negotiable though is show up at the gym, do something, you know. I'm not as structured with my programming and my workouts as I used to be, but that's not the phase of life I'm in. I don't care to be the big bodybuilder anymore. Some other non-negotiables are going to be, I try my best to read or consume at least 20 to 30 minutes of productive content a day, whether it's directly business related or something secondary. That I just make that my goal to consume. And as much as I drive every day, I usually drive about 2 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Because I start in Greer, drive to Greenville, to Spartanburg, back to Greenville. So I have a lot of time in the vehicle to listen and consume content that way. What's other like non-negotiables? Obviously brush my teeth, consume enough protein.
That's good.
You know, like those things. But yeah, I don't really have a whole like hard set of rules. I used to a lot more.
Okay.
And I guess I've kind of gotten a little bit lazier, but I've also been blessed to scale myself up in a way where those rituals aren't necessary anymore. Like waking up at 4 a.m. and going to the gym. I don't have to do that anymore because I do have guys that can open my stores for me. So I wake up at 6:37, go to the gym.
Less.
Yeah, I mean, it's
sounds so
nice. I'm fortunate, but there's also years where I wasn't able to do that. And there's also going to be years where I'm not going to be able to do that. You know, when JC and I have a family one day, like I know that a kid's going to be thrown into the mix, and that's going to be a whole new set of non-negotiables I'm going to have to create. So but I'm not like your typical like entrepreneur bro. Like I don't have like the wake up, cold plunge, drink your lemon water, and then go outside and get sunlight in your eyes kind of thing. I think all those things are helpful, but I notice more often than not that the people that are so dead set on those like certain ritualistic behaviors, they're more focused on that than they are the actual outcome of whatever they're going for. That's just an observation.
No, I like that you said that because I was thinking that the other day because I've definitely gotten out of some of my like things that used to be non-negotiables. But I like that you mentioned that you can kind of like upscale yourself, not necessarily out of it, but into different senses of it. Instead of like, all right, I wake up and then I read 10 pages and then I journal and then I meditate and then I cold shower and then my day starts. Like I used to do that too, but now I find myself like, okay, what's more valuable to me in the morning? Maybe I can journal at the end of the day, or maybe my cold shower is after my workout. It doesn't have to be set in stone once those habits are formed. But I think at the beginning, it does help to form those habits. But I like that you mentioned that because it can be hard, like mentally. Like literally last night, I was like, man, I have been so lazy. Like I'm not doing anything. Like I need to be off my phone and I need to get back to all these things and kind of like beating myself up about it. But I'm like, but I haven't really lost the habits that like keep my my body great and like my mind great and my health great, like working out and eating well. It's just like those little things that I feel like the self-help side of social media really portrays and pushes on you, which are helpful, but not like end all be all.
Right.
If that makes sense.
I think it's crucial
Yeah.
for people who are not already like regimented or have a direction. But if you think about it, all of these habits and rituals, somebody started them, right?
Yeah.
And that somebody started them probably because it worked best for their life and their lifestyle, their daily schedule, right? Your schedule and theirs might be totally different.
Right.
You know, your ability to do things at different times is obviously different. So, but I ran into a similar kind of feeling about, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, right when I met my wife now. I call it an identity crisis, right? But like I started to just see myself almost like a lucid dream. I saw myself changing from who I was into who I'm like becoming,
We're
right?
25.
And like, yeah. Like I hated that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, like why can't I, like, I'm not waking up at 4 a.m. and going to the gym and my workouts are just not what they used to be. I'm always stressed, or when I get home at work, I'm spending time with her instead of like working on video editing.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? I'm going downhill.
Yeah.
But then, about 1 to 2 months in, seeing a counselor just to kind of get a lot off my plate, I realized like we're constantly evolving.
Yes.
Like we're always changing. And so I shouldn't try to latch on to somebody who's in the past, myself.
Right.
I need to embrace what I'm becoming.
Yeah.
But also make sure that I'm holding strong to certain values that keep me growing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you don't just, you evolving is not just becoming a lazy piece of shit.
Right.
But it is, it's okay to change. And it's okay to have those periods in your life where you're like, oh shit, I don't really do that anymore. Why? Well, it might not have served whatever purpose anymore.
Yeah. I love that you say that. That's literally been the theme of my last year of life. Yes. It was like me up here, like looking down on like 24 and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? But like, can't figure it out. And then like, I'm about to turn 25 and a couple months ago, I was talking to my best friend about it. I was like, I don't know. Things are just so like my mind, I see things differently. I look at things differently. And like, I spent so long trying to like be my 22-year-old self who like was in the best shape of her life and so disciplined in all these aspects and whatever. And then all of 24, I was like, how do I be her? And now like the last couple months of 24, I'm like, well, I'm not, but like, what pieces do I want to evolve into who I am now? And she's like, well, that would be your frontal lobe developing, my friend. And I was like, that's real?
Yeah.
That's real? That's crazy. But that's so funny you say that because I'm literally in that stage of life right now where I'm like, oh, I'm changing and that's okay. Like that doesn't mean that I can't be the best version of myself now,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, personally, I latched on to one theory, one statement a little too hard, which is, and I agree, I still believe it, but it's you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with or the 5 influences. Yeah. And so before I came to realizing that like, wait, I'm just changing. Like my phase of life is growing.
Yeah.
I had this like sense of resentment for people around me, whether it was my girlfriend at the time or my family or like my employees, like, because I'm like, I'm not the same person I was, or like my actions are not the same. It must be the influences around me.
Right.
Well, it was, but it wasn't them. Like it wasn't their fault.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm just growing and changing. Another influence was the fact that I just dumped 6 figures into a store that was losing money. Yeah. Too. Like, like that, those are other variables.
Right.
But as long as you don't view that in a negative way and blame others around you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because I found myself kind of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So important to surround yourself with people who you can learn from and be better from, but also make sure that you're holding yourself accountable. Because you can have all sorts of different like friends and people in different stages of life, but I've done that too. Yeah. And like before I moved to Greenville, that was my whole storyline in my old city. I was like, I can't grow here. Like, this is not for me, blah, blah, blah. And then I look back, I'm like, well, I love that city. And that was such a good time. And like, that also partly was your fault that you were doing the things you were doing there.
Yeah. To a certain degree. I mean, obviously it's difficult to move forward if you just are constantly surrounded by things that are not holding you back, but keeping you where you're at. Yeah. A lot of my best friends in high school, I didn't cut ties with, but I kind of had to, I don't see them anymore.
Yeah.
And it was just because they were 21, 22, wanted to go downtown on the weekends and get drunk. And I'm all for having a good time. Yeah. But I was trying to build something. And so I just had to make that decision to, sorry.
Yeah. So. I think that's one of the harder things for people to figure out at this age is do you try and balance it, or do you pick one or the other type of thing? Like, am I going to enjoy my 20s and go out with my friends and do that? Or am I going to head down and create this empire, or am I going to find a way to do both? And everybody's kind of stuck in that limbo of like, I don't know what to do type of thing. But that's been hard, is like having to cut ties with those people, or just like not spending as much time with friends and losing connection because your goals go this way and theirs go another. And I think right out of college is the hardest part for that, is everybody's now in a career and going so many different routes, and you're like, no, go back.
Right.
Go back.
Right. Trying to hold on to that previous version.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was I going to say? You had said something and I piggybacked off of it and now it left my brain. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. 100%. Yeah. 100%. So, but yeah.
Are you, and you are how old now?
I'm 29.
29.
So I turned, 29 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I guess this is my last year of
the 20s.
Being eligible to have this discussion on the show. But no, last year of 20s has gone by so crazily quick. Like, the last 10 years, I'm like, good Lord. Like, it seems like I was just starting freshman year in college. Yeah. But
are you freaked out for 30? No?
No, I don't, I'm not like a big age kind of guy. Like, it is just a number. I mean, obviously certain things are going to change, like the way my body feels and all that. But no, it's just a number for me. Yeah. I already accepted my fate at a young age by just, going bald. So, which does run in my family. Also, if you're a dude and you want to keep your hair, don't be like Jakob and do steroids when you're 21, 22. That'll really, really
speed up the process.
Yeah, it'll push that hair loss up the line pretty quick. So, but yeah, no, I'm excited for the future. Yeah. I'm excited for all the big, projects that I want to accomplish, and me and my wife want to accomplish together. So yeah, just optimistic and just keep my head down and move forward.
Yeah. What would you say is the best thing you've learned in your 20s?
Oh boy.
Put you on the spot.
Well, you got me at 29, so I've got like 10 years of just thoughts or 9 years. Most important thing I've learned in my 20s. There's a few answers, but I'll just spit one out. Realizing that most people most people are not evil. And I say that it took a long time for me to understand that we all view the world through a different pair of eyeballs, and we all share different perspectives. And the way that you were raised dictates, and your experiences dictate how you see the world and how you perceive things. And for a long time, especially when I first got started into the nutrition store, I just couldn't understand why people believed what they believed, whether it's nutrition or religiousness. And it took me forever to understand that we all have different human experiences. Like, it's, what I'm saying to you might be perceived a totally different way than how I'm trying for it to come off. Yeah. And so understanding that we all live in our own shell of our head and we all see the world differently than one another has helped me tremendously in communicating, in understanding how to persuade viewpoints if I have to, whether it's, a negotiation or something like that. Just understanding that simple fact was crucial for me to just understand human behavior. Yeah. And when I say that too, if you feel like somebody has done something to harm you, understanding that their perspective it might not have ever been to hurt you, or to steal from you, or to slight you. Early on, let's say if I had this great friend who also owned a business, and we were partnered up, we did a lot of cool stuff together, right? If they were to go and partner and do the same exact thing with a competitor of mine, I'd almost take that as like a personal attack. Like, how could they? Like, I've done this, this, and this, and this, and this for them. Yeah. But also, perspective. they're trying to grow their business and reach as many opportunities as they can. They never once had the thought pop in their head that they were trying to hurt me or like affect me.
Yeah.
And so like, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Same thing with relationships, you know, plenty of girls I dated before I got married, you know, like my perspective, their perspective didn't align on how we did things, but neither party had an intention to cause harm.
Right.
So
that's a really interesting point of view. Nobody's brought that up. I like that.
Thank you. Well, and there's probably, if I had like thought on this for the next few days, there'd probably be like an even more like important one, but that's just what popped into my head.
Sure.
Yeah.
No,
perspective.
I love it.
So,
I love
thanks.
it. That's a good way to kind of tie everything together.
I appreciate it.
So where can people support you, follow you, all that good stuff?
Well, so if you guys, if you're on Instagram, I hope you are. It's just at the Nutrition Store LLC, TikTok at the Nutrition Store. We have way more followers on TikTok, but I don't like TikTok very much.
Okay.
I do post there, but hit us up on Instagram if you are local. 477 Haywood Road here in Greenville, or 1398 Boiling Springs Road in Spartanburg. And if you're not local, thenutritionstores.com.
Perfect.
Stores, plural.
Stores.
I'm still waiting to buy the domain from the other entity in Texas. So
I'll put that in the notes so
absolutely.
People can find it.
No, thank you. And
Awesome.
thank you for having me. This
Yeah,
is so
of
great.
course.
And
Thank
I'm
you
looking
for
forward to
coming.
listening to more episodes and watching you grow.
Thank you.
So yeah, no doubt.